Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to flourish. You see, for too long, conservative principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I want to thank Larry O'Connor. Isn't he great? All our guys are great. I'm in a good mood today. I don't have the foggiest idea why. It's sunny out. It's very comfortable, a little breezy, Mr. Producer, so the air can go through my non-hair. It's really unbelievable. And there is a lot to get to. We'll discuss somewhat Joe Biden, although they're beating it with to death in the media. I think the Supreme Court ruling is worth discussing with you because it's important. The court is a mixed bag lately. Last Friday it was a disaster, 7-2. Then today, in an opinion that it didn't write, just an order, it was 8-1. Well, again, I'll get into that with Jackson. I hope you were able to see my show on Fox on Saturday and Sunday. But there's a lot going on, actually, a whole lot. And we're going to get to a lot of it. But I got to thinking about something. We do things a little differently here. We dig and we think and we play and we think. And so I'm thinking to myself, as I watch these TV shows, not a lot, some, and I watch all these spinning when it comes to those who are saying, well, if we only knew about Biden, and they knew about Biden, and then there's more debate over the cancer issue and so forth and so on, how irrelevant it all is to most of our lives. Now, we're curious. I'm curious. We'll look at it, but it's a drumbeat. One day it's something, one day it's another. And I got to thinking, I'm watching clips. Mr. Producer put some clips together, some very nasty Democrats saying very nasty things about President Trump, about our country, just horrendous. Folks, language is an important thing. We've talked somewhat about this before, and I've taken a look at this issue of language. And all weekend long, particularly on these so-called Sunday news shows, it's negative language, negative language, negative language. I've divided language into negative language and positive language. Things are uplifting, concepts that are positive, words and terms and phrases that promote free societies, free speech, healthy dialogue, and then the opposite. Sloganeering, name-calling, which are all intended to shut you down and shut me down. And you hear it all the time. So I think it deserves a very careful look. You and me together. So in Chapter 4 of On Power, not on drugs, I've never done drugs, On Power, we look at language. Now, again, I'm not going to read the whole book, but I want to give you a flavor for this because I think you're going to find this intriguing. And after all, it was written for you. An author writes a book for the audience. They don't write it for themselves unless they're egomaniacs like, Jake Tapper. I don't write autobiographies. We have people who are 12 years old. They're writing memoirs about themselves. Have you noticed that, Mr. Producer? Like I care. That'll never happen with me. I won't do that. Or self-help books, like they know anything about self-help. I write about topics that interest me, I feel are compelling to you, that might interest you. It helps break down what's taking place in our society. And so I point out there are endless treatises, ancient and new, on rhetoric and dialectic approaches to thought and communication. And rather than get into long and largely esoteric inquiries and the history of both, although I personally find it fascinating, but that's me, it's more useful for the purpose of this book on power to evaluate language as it applies to the present-day applications of negative and positive power. Remember, negative power is largely coercive power. Now, in Marxist and Islamist regimes and regimes of that sort, totalitarian regimes, negative power can turn into genocide. As opposed to positive power is based on the Judeo-Christian heritage, the promotion of individual liberty, unalienable rights, free will, and those things that make a successful and happy and prosperous human being. Language has many purposes, of course, but at its core, language is about what? Communication. There are many types of communication and many purposes for it. And so I organize them into two basic categories, the power of language and the power over language. The power of language and the power over language. Again, this distinction has been discussed over the ages and even in recent times in an infinite number of ways, but I shall use them here to make certain fundamental points, understanding that they're distinguishable in significant ways. That's power of language and power over language. The pursuit and maintenance of negative power requires the utilization of negative techniques of communication, including what? Manipulation, deception, repetition, deceit, concealment, distraction, and fear-mongering, and language that is intimidating, self-serving, and orchestrated. And I got to thinking, isn't that what the Sunday shows are, America? When you have the likes of Chris Murphy of Connecticut out there and AOC and Bernie Sanders and the rest, isn't that what that's about? It's an approach that seeks to arouse prejudices and stifle independent thought. The purpose is to exert power over language and to control the population without moral reservations. In fact, morality itself is said to be relative or nothing but an abstraction, concealing the rot of open societies and democracies and obfuscating and exploiting the people. Now, in the political context, when language is applied this way, it strikes a central part of the democratic system, denying the body politic information with which to make knowledgeable, qualitative, and collective decisions. Is this not our media? Is that not CNN and MSNBC and the Post and the New York Times and the rest of it? Of course. This is the intention of its practitioners, whether they be journalists or politicians or academicians. And communication of this sort exists for the purpose of arousing and angering the citizenry and exhorting them to action that is destructive of the existing society and their own lives and lifestyles in service to the demagogue and his aims. Inasmuch as people and their consent are the only legitimate and just source of government, the entire enterprise, therefore, is corrupt and malevolent. In fact, citizens acquiesce to it. They regurgitate it. You hear the Democrats, you hear their supporters, you hear their protesters, or even demand, they, where applicable, believing there is no other course or that it is the best course until it's too late. The reverse course, without an abrupt and often violent revolution. And for many, suffering persists for an extended period of time. So, for example, prior to the Russian Revolution, is this boring you, Mr. Producer? Mr. Producer loves this stuff, and I'm glad he does. Britannica finds that in Vladimir Lenin's 1902 pamphlet, What is to be Done, and I own one of those pamphlets, he argues, and I'm quoting Britannica here, that is, Lenin argues, that the propagandist, whose primary medium is print, explains the causes of social inequities, there's the word, inequities, such as unemployment or hunger, while the agitator, whose primary medium is speech, seizes on the emotional aspects of these issues to arouse his audience to indignation or action. Agitation is thus, writes Lenin, the use of political slogans and half-truths, like warmonger, Hitler, half-truths, slogans, half-truths, outright lies to exploit the grievances of the public and thereby mold public opinion and mobilize public support. Propaganda, by contrast, is the reasoned use, says Lenin, of historical and scientific arguments to indoctrinate the educated and so-called enlightened members of society, such as party members. So he's saying, look, we got to use propaganda against our own people so they see things the way we do. And then we have to use slogans, grievances, to get the masses on our side. Well, let me ask you something. On these budget talks right now, who keeps saying, the billionaires, you're taking money from Medicaid, it's a lie. To give it to the billionaires, it's a lie. So the Democrats really are of a Marxist mindset, American Marxism, a tailored, customized form of Marxism for American consumption. They really are that, just based on the language they use if you listen to it. Now, the combination of agitation, that is, for riotous activity like you see on our college campuses, with propaganda, that is, the brainwashing and the agitation, as Britannica further explains, is called Agitprop, Agitprop. You're going to learn from this book, which is the shortest book I've ever written, the most concise book I've ever written, but a power-packed book. Agitprop. The term agitprop originated as a shortened form of the agitation and propaganda section of the Central Committee Secretariat of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. In other words, it's a Lenin invention. And this department of the Central Committee was established in the early 1920s, responsible for determining the content of all official information. But, Mark, it's the United States. What are you talking about? You remember the vaccines? You remember the Hunter Biden laptop? Do you remember that unit they wanted to set up at DHS and they never really took down? The monitoring of your language, the monitoring of your post by the federal government. Remember all this? It's hard to forget, isn't it? Now, this department of the Central Committee was established to do what the Biden regime was trying to do to you and me. Watching over all forms of mass communication, mobilizing public support for party programs and so forth. Isn't that what the media are, really? The Democrat Party wing? Again, for Marxism and other forms of autocratic ideologies and governing systems, negative power is exercised through language that is tailored to lord over the people and control the society and the culture. Hence, language is a tool of the state that serves the state. It takes on an official character, It is limited, prescribed, and restricted. It compels certain types of speech and suppresses other forms of speech. It's called censorship, obviously. In essence, it is organized propaganda. That's what I call it. Organized propaganda. Simply put, as one great writer, thinker, who unfortunately got caught up in the Third Reich, Hannah Arendt, she said this is simply thought control of the masses. These Sunday shows, for the most part, they're about thought control for the masses. That's why it's the conga line of pretty much the same people pushing the Marxist, Islamist propaganda or the hate Trump, anti-Trump propaganda. and using the slogans, the most horrific kinds of slogans to fearmonger. This is exactly what's taking place today. And she explained further that what she called totalitarian propaganda involves the use of indirect, veiled, and menacing hints of violence to non-believers, claims of scientific prophecy. Remember? The masks? Distinguished from old-fashioned appeals to the past and to absolute systems which suppress men from their history. That is mankind. And employs absurd predictions to avoid discussion, like Bernie Sanders. Well, health care for all, health care for all. There's never going to be health care for all, even if you nationalize it in 4,000 different ways. For only the future can reveal the merits, you see. So they're not held to account today for their failures. Like the FAA, like FEMA. Arendt observes that totalitarian propaganda highlights socialism and race as two key categories of exploitation because they neatly lend themselves to group identification and exploitation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this goes on some length, but not massively long, where I pierce into it and then I contrast it with positive language and positive power. So we're going to go through this over the next few months. I'm not going to overwhelm. I'm not going to bore. I hope this piques your interest. You can get On Power now on Amazon.com. And let me just remind you, when you order it during the pre-order period, they're already starting to discount it. I think today it's 11%. It's eventually going to be 40, 45, 50. If you order it now, you take a ride. You take a good ride. And when they get it to 40, 45, 50%, it applies to you. The highest discount from now until the time the book is released, you will get. I urge you to get it for Father's Day. It won't be delivered until July 29th, but you can let your father, your grandfather, your husband know and get a good price. It's called On Power. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The Heritage Foundation wants to wish a happy Armed Forces Day to the men and women currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Heritage recognizes that without their sacrifice and devotion, Americans could not enjoy the freedoms we have today. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, it's more important now than ever to reflect on the sacrifices of so many. Unfortunately, the U.S. government doesn't always honor those sacrifices very well. A declining defense industrial base and a nuclear arsenal that some say is quickly being outpaced by China are some of the most pressing issues facing our military right now. Defense experts at the Heritage Foundation have spent significant time investigating these issues, and they now have solutions. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Get access to Breathtaking, the Heritage Foundation's newly released nuclear documentary. Grab your copy. It's absolutely free. Again, go to heritage.org/Levin, LEVIN. Get access to Breathtaking. You'll also find their latest report on how the U.S. can take action now to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. You can find these eye-opening resources at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You know, most of you take these little intellectual journeys with me, and I really appreciate it. I hope you learn a lot from them, like this one. Example, you're hearing all this talk about Biden, about the Her tapes. We've got them all here. Everybody's got them. Or you're hearing about what was said about his cancer or not said about his cancer. We have them all here. We'll listen to some of that. But just listening to it is not enough. What's being done to you is the question. That is, what kind of language are they using? What kind of propaganda are they using? How they're trying to brainwash you and so forth. You want to cut through all the news static, all the hosts that are just burping this stuff up and playing it. It's deeper than this. This is utter and complete manipulation. I'll be right back. Have you thanked a U.S. service member recently? With Armed Forces Day this past weekend and Memorial Day coming up right now, the Heritage Foundation is committed to honoring the sacrifice of those who gave their lives for our freedoms and protecting those who currently serve. The U.S. government, however, has not demonstrated the same commitment. Our defense industrial base, which is vital to keeping a strong and ready military, it's in a shambles. Our nuclear arsenal is even in worse shape. The Heritage Foundation recognizes the severity of this threat, and you can now gain access to what their research has uncovered. It's unbelievable. In fact, it's breathtaking. Go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get access to the report. It's called Breathtaking: China's Race to Nuclear Dominance. This is eye-opening. It's a deep dive. It underscores why it's critical that the U.S. take action right now. You'll also gain access to the Heritage Foundation's latest report on how to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. For the safety of those who currently serve, it is imperative that we take action right now. So please visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the champion of liberty and true conservatism. Call Mark now, 877-381-3811.
Folks, this is really cool stuff. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. It just doesn't exist. And that's why I'm thrilled you're here. That's why I'm thrilled I have this platform. I want to give you a perfect example of what I'm saying here in the book on power. Here's a flash montage, hat tip to X, of what the Democrats were saying about Biden. And I want to get beyond what you've been hearing. Like they lied to us, and get a little deeper on this. Cut 5, go.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with him.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
I can testify because I've been working very closely with this president for the past 2 years. I've been knowing him for 30 years. And I'm telling you, this guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
Joe Biden has vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker.
The president is focused. He's detail-oriented. He's always thinking about the big picture.
He is engaging. He is capable. He has an incredible record as president.
And I'm often with him on foreign trips. He's at the top of his game.
So he has a vision. He has knowledge. He has judgment. He has a strategic thinking.
I met with the president, 5 or 6 weeks ago, and he seemed fine to me.
I have complete confidence in the president. I have watched him expertly guide meetings of staff and cabinet members. I could not have more confidence in the president.
I would just tell you that I meet frequently with the president, and every single time I meet with him, he is just fine.
But he is, again, knowledgeable, wise.
Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing, incredible command of the details.
He is sharp. He is on top of things.
There is nothing to these challenges, these suggestions that somehow he's not sharp and he's not capable.
We see Joe Biden up close. We know how attuned he is to the issue.
And you're going to see how smart he is. And
all right, that's enough. It goes on, and rightly so. So what's going on here? They're lying to us. They know they're lying to us. Power. The pursuit and maintenance of negative power. Power requires the utilization of negative techniques of communication, including manipulation, as I just said, deception, repetition, concealment, distraction, and later you would have heard fear-mongering. In language that is self-serving and orchestrated. This is what tyrannies do. This is what tyrannies do. This is why it is so pernicious. So pernicious. This is totalitarian propaganda, as I again explained in the chapter. This is totalitarian propaganda. That's what it is. Now, what you would have also heard if I let it continue, but it's enough already, is the attack, the smear, the character assassination, the woe is me of anybody who raised what is in fact a fact. What is noticeable by all of us with our own eyes and our own ears. And so there was an entire campaign, again, a totalitarian propaganda campaign to try and persuade us, or at least bully us, that our eyes were lying, that our ears were lying. This is what totalitarian propaganda is all about. This is what the Democrat Party and our media are all about. You can look at it as they talk about Trump, Hitler, threat to democracy, repetition, deceit, lies, over and over again. It's more than propaganda. It's a power play. It's done in communist regimes. It's done in fascistic regimes. It's done in Islamist states. And it's done by the Democrat Party and their media, day in and day out, against us, we the people. It's not a mistake. It's a strategy. The goal is to subvert, from the book, to subvert the civil society, to undermine our values and our belief systems, to corrupt the public spirit and the public place, to reject questioning, challenges, to shut down debate and discussion in service to the totalitarian mindset. And in this case, the Democrat Party and its demand, its insatiable demand for power. Unlike positive power, which I'll touch on tomorrow, I won't overwhelm you with this stuff today. And it goes on, it explains it in far more detail. And we are subjected to this day in and day out by the mass media and the Democrat Party. It is day in and day. You're hearing now, today, the Republicans want to cut Medicaid, but they don't. And they've explained it 1,000 times. They want individuals who have healthy minds and healthy bodies, many young men, to get off the sofa and to work at least 20 hours a week in order to be qualified for Medicaid. Under Reagan and then later with Newt Gingrich, you had to at least try to get a job or you didn't get Medicaid. That was all changed under Obama. And so now what the Republicans are saying, look, there's people who need it. Medicaid was set up for poor kids. That's what it was set up for. And it's expanded to others. But it was never intended as a welfare program for able-bodied and able-minded individuals who don't look for work. And so the Republicans are saying, we're going to cut them out. They were never supposed to be part of the program. That'll free up money for other things. So the Democrats are running around saying they want to cut Medicaid for the billionaires. They want their negative power. They use negative language. They use the language of totalitarians. The language of totalitarians. And they're fear-mongering, they're manipulating, they're deceiving, and they couldn't get away with it but for their media, which is exactly the same mindset. So this entire book on power, there's just a tiny little piece, language, and I've given you a little piece of a little piece, is something that I think is so relevant to what's taking place today that it'll just click in when you're hearing it. You can talk to others about it and alert them to what's taking place. I do the same thing when it comes to the issue of freedom, when it comes to rights, and so forth and so on. I'm excited about this book. I've written a lot of books. And when I finished this book, I was excited about it. I said, man, this is the best I can do on this subject. I learned a ton. And it's crucial that I pass it on to you folks in an understandable way. So when you're watching this stuff, you know exactly what's going on. Or when there's a debate over a program, you know exactly what's going on. Or when there's changes to election procedures, of course you know they're trying to steal an election. But it's important to know more. That these are movements. That these are strategies. That these are the kinds of things that the Democrat Party and the media, and not just Democrats, some Republicans, but mostly, let's be honest, mostly the other side, that they are using, tools that they are using from totalitarian regimes, whether they be fascist or Marxist or Islamist. They're not using the tools of the framers and the founders. They're not using, the tools of republics and democracies. They're trying to crush them. They're trying to usurp them. And this is what's important to understand. Now, Jamie Raskin, this is a guy I am itching like hell to debate on my TV or radio show, right here. But I can't get him. We've tried 1,000 different ways. Because he is the epitome, the quintessential autocrat in my view, as his father was. And I want to debate this stuff with him. I want to confront him. I want to challenge him like nobody else will or nobody else can. No offense, I'm just saying. He knows it because he won't come here. He'll come everywhere else, but he won't come here. And neither will Bernie Sanders, and neither will AOC. They'll go on Sunday shows, they'll go on the weekend shows, they will not come here. Now here's Raskin, October 2023. Now the other interesting thing is there's absolutely no accountability. Why? Because the entire ideology is immoral. It's unethical. It's not about telling the truth. It's not about being held to account. It's about power. Do what you need to do to get power. That's why I said we've spent a lot of time, decades, talking about liberty and tyranny. We've spent decades talking about rights, unalienable rights, and the abuse of rights and the change of the nomenclature when it comes to rights, economic rights, social rights, this right, that right, which of course has nothing to do with unalienable rights that the founders were talking about, but nonetheless. So I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm reading, I'm studying, I'm going, wait a minute, this is liberty and rights. Yes, where they come from, crucially important. What was meant, crucially important. But power determines if you have them. Power. And so I got to break this thing down. I've got to break it down. And that's what I've done in this book for you. Jamie Raskin, this is, let's see, a year and a half ago, October 2023. Jamie Raskin, October 2023. Hat tip Western Lensman on X. I try to give everybody credit the credit's due. And you have Wolf Blitzer. Wolf Blitzer's a propagandist of the left. He spews negative language to support negative power. That is, the kind of political, governmental, societal, and cultural power that runs counter to our founding. And most of them do. And now you'll be able to analyze it and break it down with a simple book. With a simple title on power. Here's Jamie Raskin, cut 6, go.
Does this raise alarms about whether President Biden is fit to serve another term in office?
And this was the attack on Robert Hur, the special counsel. I must have 5 or 10 clips here of politicians and people in the media attacking this guy, Robert Hur, who doesn't appear to have a political bone in his body. And when you listen to these Hur tapes, and you can listen on your own, and I think some was played on Friday by Larry, was it not, Mr. Producer? I believe so. You'll see how the attack on Robert Hur was another totalitarian attempt to change the subject, to threaten those who dared to threaten their power, and so forth and so on. Go ahead.
Well, undoubtedly, that's what Robert Hur, who comes from my state, he's a Maryland Republican, undoubtedly that's what he intended to do with those
So
ridiculous...
Robert Hur is one of these Republicans that's not a Republican. He's a Republican by registration, but he's not really a party guy. He's just one of these kind of establishment Republican guys. But you see, Raskin is a Stalinist. So he turns him into sort of this fire-breathing Republican, which the guy is absolutely not. Why? Because part of the totalitarian mindset, when I'm talking about negative power and negative language, is to pile on, is to abuse, is to smear, is to target, as opposed to actually discussing the issue. And when you discuss the issue of Joe Biden, he's brilliant, he's sharp, he's wise. Because they want to retain power, they want to increase their power, they want to ram it through. It doesn't matter. They have no morals whatsoever. Go ahead.
I spent an hour with President Biden and the entire Democratic caucus where he regaled and entertained everyone for an hour and went through all of the extraordinary...
First of all, it's regaled, but who cares? Go ahead.
His administration, including the Inflation Reduction Act. We've got the best economy in the world right now, the creation of millions and millions of jobs.
Okay, it literally goes on for many minutes here. Jamie Raskin is a Stalinist, in my humble opinion, like his father was. He's really good at this. He goes on about all these programs that were passed, and her is a Republican, he comes from my state, and he's never going to tell the truth about Biden and Biden's mental state. He said they were there an hour, and he was really, what did he say? Fantastic. And he knows he wasn't, but it doesn't matter. It's not about truth or morality. It's about coercion. It's about thought control. Power. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The Heritage Foundation wants to wish a happy Armed Forces Day to the men and women currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Heritage recognizes that without their sacrifice and devotion, Americans could not enjoy the freedoms we have today. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, it's more important now than ever to reflect on the sacrifices of so many. Unfortunately, the U.S. government doesn't always honor those sacrifices very well. A declining defense industrial base and a nuclear arsenal that some say is quickly being outpaced by China are some of the most pressing issues facing our military right now. Defense experts at the Heritage Foundation have spent significant time investigating these issues, and they now have solutions. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Get access to Breathtaking, the Heritage Foundation's newly released nuclear documentary. Grab your copy. It's absolutely free. Again, go to heritage.org/Levin, LEVIN. Get access to Breathtaking. You'll also find their latest report on how the U.S. can take action now to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. You can find these eye-opening resources at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I really want you all to be fluent in this. There's millions of you. The more you're fluent in it, the more we can save this republic. Because even this budget debate, as I said, they're going around Medicaid and Medicare, and the Republicans this and the billionaires that. And you know, you can say, well, they're lying and they're lying. But I think it's much more penetrating, much more persuasive to explain the technique, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and where this comes from. And it is utterly immoral. And again, try and have at least a faint memory of what I've discussed today. Not because you're going to be tested, obviously, but because I want to hit the opposite tomorrow a little bit. Positive language. And if there's any of this interests you, it's much more expanded upon, much more comprehensive in the book itself. And again, you can grab it on Amazon.com, on any of my social sites. We're going to move on next hour, but this is so relevant to what's going on. Now, you'll notice when I write a book, I'm never invited on Face the Nation or Meet the Press or any of those shows. And yet you buy them. I use this platform and my Fox platform and my Blaze platform. But they don't want people to hear what I have to say. Because it's destructive of them. It's destructive of what they're doing to the country and to the American public. All right, folks, we got 2 big-time hours left. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Thank you for being here. Over at National Review, Supreme Court allows Trump to remove protected status for 350,000 Venezuelans, paving the way for deportation. So what happened here? Protected status is supposed to be a case-by-case evaluation. Case-by-case evaluation by DHS to determine if somebody coming into the United States has a real reason to fear returning to their country. A real reason to fear. Not because they're poor, not because they're criminals, trying to stay in front of the police in their country, that sort of thing, but a real legitimate fear. Because we're a beneficent country, you see. And so we have these various types of programs. The problem is what Joe Biden did was he handed out these apps, and he took this law about protected status, and what did he do? He handed it out like lollipops. So people who responded, who wanted to come to the United States, many of whom were flown into the United States on your dime, who were not covered by protected status, and in any event, they didn't go the individual review, the vetting process. He did this for, they say, 350,000. He did it for up to 530,000 foreigners. 530,000. Overwhelmingly Venezuelans. And so Donald Trump comes in and he says, okay, wait a minute. He perverted the law. He brought all these people in here. Protected status, Mike took us. That's not how this works. I'm going to remove these people. And so you have a federal district judge who's a radical leftist. His name is Edward Chen. Radical leftist. Appointed by Obama. And he says every single one of these individuals gets to stay. Every single one of these individuals gets a review process before they can be removed. And so the Trump Solicitor General was in front of the Supreme Court and said, wait a minute here. Every single one of them gets a review process. Biden violated the law when he basically abused this aspect of the immigration laws and brought these people in, and I'm simply removing them. We know who they are. We have a list. There's no doubt what their names are. So this federal district judge said, no. An Obama radical kook judge. And he went further than that. He said this administration, the Trump administration, was in part motivated by, ready for this, Mr. Producer, racism. We just read, right, that the two big issues they use are socialism and racism as arguments for something. Racism. And the President's Solicitor General aggressively and brilliantly argued in front of the Supreme Court, this has nothing to do with racism. So the court, in an order, said that the Trump administration wins in this instance, that these Venezuelan transnational gang, Trendiagra, has been a target, of federal law enforcement. There's no evidence of racism, and that President Trump is free to remove them because they do not have a protected status. So they paved the way for deportation. 8-1. Justice Jackson being the one. She's a radical kook, always was a radical kook as a district court judge, just a complete phony fraud and fake. And yet on Friday, in a 7-2 ruling, the court ruled against the use of this very old statute and a lack of what they said was due process for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other illegal aliens. So this is a mixed bag with this court. This is a very important decision, don't get me wrong. It involves up to 500,000 or so people. And so that's good. It's always good when the law and the Constitution are upheld. But I'm saying it's a mixed bag in terms of what they've done in other cases so far. And we'll see what they do when it comes to these national injunctions. So I've just explained to you in 5 or 6 minutes what happened in this case, which, number one, most people can't explain, and number two, the lawyers who do explain it, they just drone on and on and on. And so I cut to the chase when I can, as we just did. Excuse me. So that was an important ruling, but the Supreme Court's a mixed bag. This Barrett, as I discussed this here and discussed it on Blaze and discussed it on Fox, in this case involving birthright citizenship and national injunctions, she was so off the rails. And so she says to the Solicitor General Sauer, and I touched on it, but it's important to bring it back. Are you telling me that if the Second Circuit, which is an appeals court that covers certain states, was to rule X, Y, Z, and you didn't like it, that you don't have to comply with it? And, of course, the Solicitor General said in the vast majority of cases you do, but there may be occasions, rare occasions, where no. And she just couldn't believe that. She said, absolutely wrong. And then I educated her, if she's capable of being educated. And I explained that the Dred Scott decision actually was, when it was appealed to the Circuit Court upheld the pro-slavery decision. And then it was appealed to the United States Supreme Court and Dred Scott, and that was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So apparently, according to Judge Barrett, you're required to adhere to a decision that basically said, no way can you eliminate slavery under no conditions. Because slaves are property, and that's that. So basically, her comments were really quite stupid for a justice. Jackson's comments were really quite stupid. I don't think she understands how the process works. Or if she does, she doesn't care. Kagan's statements were quite stupid. She kept saying to the Solicitor General, and we talked about this for sure, you bring up process. You keep bringing up these national injunctions. You've got the wrong case because substantively, birthright citizenship, it's a loser. You know it's a loser. Why didn't you argue that? And he said, well, I'm arguing process right now. No, it's a loser case. Now, why is it a loser? Since nowhere ever illegal immigrants having children was said by the Supreme Court, was said by the states, nowhere ever by Congress and a statute is there any legal, constitutional, historical justification for illegal alien children being citizens. Well, that's a loser case, you know. So I'm looking at the Three Stooges, or at least three of the Three Stooges. Maybe there's 4 or 5 Stooges, but 3 of them. Kagan, Barrett, and Jackson. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? What a mess. What a mess. Now, this case really was an up or down case. It was as clear-cut as it gets. And still Jackson voted against the rest of them. And she'll continue to do that because she's a radical. That's what she is. She's not a judge or justice. She's a radical. So she'll continue to do this. It's an important case. It's good that they won. But it is what it is. When we come back, I want to get into this guy, Tim Walz. And not just because it's fun to hit Tim Walz, but I want to use him as another foil. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. We're going to get to Tampon Tim in a minute, but I want you to think about this. I want you to think about this conspiracy. This conspiracy over power, to hold on to power, to win an election, and to control we the people. They have to control the language. They have to control the thought. They have to control the press. They have to control the information. What was done to us by the Biden regime, by the state-run media, by the Marxist Democratic Party, is done in tyrannies, including the most aggressive form of totalitarian regimes. It was a direct assault on you as an individual, on the body politic, on the civil society. And it was a vicious, vile, all of government, all of media, all of academia attack. There are voices here and there, but mostly there, not here. I want you to think about this. You have an Attorney General of the United States who heard that tape, or those tapes, with her. HUR, the special counsel. His staff heard them, other officials at the Department of Justice. And rather than talk about the need for the Vice President of the Cabinet to trigger the 25th Amendment, because that was their obligation. That's why the 25th Amendment is there. And somebody needs to look at this now, because if we have utterly virtuous individuals, it's never going to be triggered. But that 25th Amendment was there for right now. And it was not complied with, so all these people violated their oaths. And I talked about it at the time. What about the 25th Amendment? People don't know what the hell I was talking about, so I explained it. So the United States Department of Justice was in on this. The United States Department of Justice, in the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to my knowledge, has not been held to account, has not been subpoenaed. What did he know and other members of the Department of Justice? They covered it up. The medical doctor, whose responsibility it was to look at Joe Biden physically and mentally and report to the American people. Is that what he did? This issue with the prostate, that it metastasized, it's in his bones, it's at the 4th stage. Every doctor out there is saying that didn't just happen when he left office. And a simple blood test would have revealed that he had cancer. Was the blood test taken or not? I suspect at one point it was taken and they found what they didn't like. So they deep-sixed it and they never revealed it to the American people. So this doctor, I assume, not only knew about the cancer situation, but clearly knew about Joe Biden's mental situation. So then you have the medical profession, or at least that part of it. What else? His wife. What kind of a wife does this to her husband or the nation? I'm quite serious. This is a very evil person. She likes the trappings of power. She likes the trappings of power. She knows that he's incapable. Honestly, and I'm not even joking about this. I don't want to joke about it. I'll bet he had trouble going to the bathroom himself, taking care of himself. I suspect he's walking around with Depends and things like that. Again, this isn't meant to attack. This is meant to, like, she knew. She lives with him. She was correcting him. She was protecting him. Dr. Jill. Dr. Jill. What else? All these members of Congress that say they met with him. All these members of Congress, from Pelosi on down. All of them. Every single one of them. Except for this guy, Dean Phillips. But all the rest of them. They vouched for his mental acuity. Right to the end, until the debate. Some of them were holding on after the debate. But the worst of the politicians is Kamala Harris, as I pointed out at the time. Again, even through the debate, she had a bad debate night. She lied, and she lied, and she lied, and she lied again. The vice president, she knows he had a problem. Who else? The Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley patting himself on the back of the head about how much integrity he has and how he stood up against Trump, the tyrant. And this guy's a louse. This guy's a putz kind of general. And they're taking orders from this guy on Afghanistan and so forth. Milley, the whole senior Pentagon, Justice Department, the Pentagon, all of them knew. And 99.9% of the media knew, just like we did, even if they weren't covering the White House, even if they didn't have any connection to Biden. I wasn't covering the White House as a reporter. I didn't have any connection to Biden. But we all saw it. We talked about it. And they lied and they covered up. This is why I always tell you, it's not about the billionaires versus the working class or that. It's we the people versus the ruling class. It's the ruling class that's so thoroughly and utterly corrupt. I don't care if there's billionaires. That doesn't affect you, and that doesn't affect me. It's absolutely irrelevant to our lives. They're not taking anything from you or me. They're not stopping you from pursuing whatever you want to pursue, becoming whatever you want to become. It's irrelevant. It is a Marxist talking point by the Democrats. Class warfare, oppress, the usual crap. But it means nothing to us. But it does when it's we the people versus the ruling class, because the ruling class has actual power over us. Power. Criminal laws, civil laws, taxes, regulations, whether you're a business person, whether you're an employee of a business, whether you're an independent contractor, whatever you are, they have power over you. Not some billionaire, not some corporation. They do. The government. And I want you to remember something else that nobody's telling you. Just to trigger your memory. At the very same time this was going on, what else was going on, Mr. Producer? They're trying to destroy Donald Trump. They wanted to clear the path for a man who they know was incapacitated. Joe Biden. And so they did everything they could to destroy Trump. I won't go through the gory details, but it was in 4 different jurisdictions, 3 different levels of government, 91 indictments, laws that we never heard of before, laws that never applied before. They tried to steal his money, so he had to fight for his livelihood. They tried to put him in prison and remove him from the ballot, twisting the 14th Amendment into a pretzel. At the very same time, they were doing everything they could to lie and deceive with negative language on behalf of Joe Biden. They were trying to destroy Donald Trump to clear the path for Joe Biden. Very, very important to remember that. I'll be right back. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
On the straight and narrow path, you have a guide. Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
By the way, we weren't here Friday, you may have noticed. Well, there's a very special young man named Shia Freeland. And it was his bar mitzvah on Saturday. Problem is, where my home is, it's not so close to where I needed to be at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And it was my great honor, my family's great honor, to make the trip to rural New York, the Catskills, to attend what has to be one of the most magnificent bar mitzvahs I've ever attended, and I think they've ever attended. In a tiny little synagogue, tiny little building, in the middle of, I won't say nowhere, that's disrespectful, but you get my point. Near a lake called White Lake, which will be known to many people in the New York area. And this is a remarkable young man. He's a man of the future. He's going to be a leader. Smart, kind, decent, conservative. Wonderful family, wonderful parents, grandparents. But the whole thing, the service, the celebration, will be remembered forever by my family. It's just that fantastic. Just that emotional, I guess you could say. Just fantastic. Shia Freeland, remember that name, because I feel this young man's going places. People ask me, where were you? So now you know. I want to tell you about, first of all, if you heard my Saturday show or my Sunday show on Fox, you've heard me here. I've been quite concerned with what's been taking place in the Middle East. Now, most of my colleagues in radio and on our favorite cable channel seem very pleased and very happy. I understand that. Celebratory almost. This is a new day in foreign policy. And it may be. May be a new day in foreign policy, but I cannot accept Qatar as an ally in any respect. I don't care how many weapons we sell them. I don't care how many Boeing jets they buy over the next 10 or 20 years. I don't care if we have a military base there. Maybe we shouldn't. This is the center of terrorism, is Qatar. I said it over the weekend. I've said it before. The entrails of the old corporate media, like Mediaite, they try and stir the pot. There's nothing to stir. My views are known. They're known by the president. They're known by everybody. And people either take them into consideration or they don't. It's up to them. But there's no controversy in the fact that I'm saying what I've been saying for decades. And there's no attack on anybody either. I express my opinion. I do it with my wife. I do it with my kids. I do it with my mother-in-law. That's what you do. Doesn't mean, I'm out to get you, I'm out to destroy. No, that's not it. But that's the problem with the prepubescent, low IQ types, as they hire at Mediaite and these other platforms. They're unserious. There could be serious differences in debates within the family, within MAGA, within conservatism, within Republican ranks. It's okay. It really is. Because since I was 13 years old and my mind was focused on these things, there have been debates. Debates among candidates, debates among philosophers, debates among authors, debates over issues. It's okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I will never accept Qatar as an ally. And by the way, it's a vicious, brutal police state. You go online, you read how they treat people who work in their country. There's about 300,000 Qataris, and they bring in 500,000 to 1 million servants, and they treat them like slaves. They brutalize them. Many of them die under the most horrific conditions because obviously it's in the desert. It's very hot, like many of the areas of the Middle East. And they're like indentured servants. Once they get there, they can't get the hell out. You know, people from Nepal or some of the other very, very poor areas, Bangladesh. Meanwhile, the inbreds, the so-called monarchs, well, they live like monarchs. And as one of my guests said on Sunday, they don't ride camels, they don't ride donkeys. They ride Rolls Royces. Cars of that sort. My biggest problem with them is, number one, they funded 9/11. They and the Saudis. Number two, KSM, the mastermind behind 9/11, the FBI was about to pick him up in Qatar in an apartment. He was on Qatar's payroll as a phony employee, as he promoted terrorism all around the world, including in the United States. He was involved in the first attack on the Twin Towers, you might recall. And as our FBI showed up at his apartment paid for by the Qatari monarchy, he wasn't there. It was cleaned out because they tipped him off. The FBI said, we need to get to him. And they kept delaying until they tipped him off. They gave him a phony passport, and he got out of the country. And within 2 years, he led the attack on the United States. Also, the Saudis funded the attack on the United States. So I'm watching this. And then keep in mind, the reason the Israelis hate the Qataris is the Qataris funded Hamas to the tune of $1.8 billion, and therefore they funded October 7th. And Qatar protected the leadership of Hamas, who magically became billionaires. Qatar runs Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera has poisonous anti-American rhetoric throughout the Muslim world. They have hundreds of millions of people who read that. That is Qatar's state-run media propaganda operation. And they say one thing to the American press, and they say another to the Arabs, to the Muslims all over the world. And our press is too stupid, too lazy, too self-centered to report on what they're really saying about us. So I've got to be able to express these things. The president understands it 100%, just so you know. There's no riff. And there's not going to be a riff. And I have my views about Iran. And we'll see how that plays out. So I state them. That's what I do. That's what I do. Now I'm bringing this up to you for a reason. There are fantastic organizations in this country that understand that Judeo-Christian belief system, value system, go hand in glove, that we're attached at the shoulder, we're attached at the hip. These are the principles that are the basis for our founding, and you'll learn this in my book, too, in a very exquisite and fascinating way on power. I discuss it at some length. Positive power is based on what? Judeo-Christian belief system. Now, you can be a secularist and say, I don't believe in any of that, and that's perfectly fine. You can believe in whatever you want or not believe in anyone. You can worship hamsters as far as I'm concerned. That's not the point. The point is that's what our society is based on. That's what our country was founded on. That's what the Declaration is talking about. That's what positive power is about. Not negative power that's based on Marxism or Islamism or some other American manufactured ism. Positive power is not based on that. And you're going to read that on Power, too. And you're going to know a hell of a lot more than anybody else who dares to put their toe in the water. Most of them won't. So we have a fantastic group, several of them, like our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. This is an organization that's been built by Christians and Jews, was started by a rabbi whose fantastic daughter now runs the organization because the poor rabbi had a premature heart attack and passed away suddenly. And they try and raise funds and get it on the ground in the Holy Land to take care of the people who are there, who are under constant attack, and to help them. Israel's a tiny country. It doesn't have a massive economy. It can't compete with little Qatar and Saudi Arabia. These pretend kingdoms that were built on oil. Israel's not built on oil. It's built on something more important. More important than oil. But it can't win the war of lavishing gifts here and there, buying off lawyers and law firms, media groups. It doesn't have that kind of money. And it wouldn't anyway. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. By the way, there was a remarkable piece in the Washington Examiner last week somebody sent me. Did I show you that, Mr. Producer, where Qatar is trying to buy influence with conservative media? Did I show you that? I encourage everybody, just go ahead and Google it. That Qatar is trying to buy influence with conservative media. Now, they haven't made a run at me yet. I wonder why, Mr. Producer. There was an article not long ago that Qatar was also essentially spying on, guess who? Ted Cruz. I mean, this is this is just horrible. Just terrible. And the Democrats and the left and their media are in no position to criticize anybody. They're corrupt as hell. Corrupt as hell. This whole Biden thing is a perfect example of it. Perfect example of it. Hillary Clinton, she had her hand in every pot she possibly could. Look at Barack Obama. How did Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, become worth $150 million? How about Gore, $150 million? I don't want to hear from the Democrats and their Mediaite and the Drudge Report and all the other little scoundrels. Seriously. That Netflix deal, that was a great deal. Might as well be a jet. No? No, yes. Remember all the foreign money flowing into the Clinton Library? Or as Rush used to call it, the Clinton Library massage parlor. Remember all that, folks? Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't a big deal, apparently. I've decided to drop Tim Waltz, like the nut job that he is. I'm not going to waste your time. When this guy's running around, calls ICE agents the modern-day Gestapo. These people hate America. I wrote a book, The Democrat Party Hates America. They really hate America. The propaganda they use is old-time fascistic Marxist propaganda, as we just discussed. They have no morality. They have no ethics. They're there to attack, to destroy, just like their friends in the communist movement and the fascistic movements and the Islamist movements and so forth and so on. There's a reason why those elements are in the Democrat Party's fold. There's a reason for it. Why they rely on them. And they do. And Tim Waltz, the founders feared the tyrant Trump. The founders didn't fear Donald Trump at all. The founders would be disgusted with the likes of a tampon Tim. They'd be disgusted with the whole idea of this Democrat Party and what it does. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, let me separate the boneheads from the rest of us. Kash Patel is a great patriot. Dan Bongino is a great patriot. I know Kash Patel, but Dan Bongino is a buddy of mine. I don't know any greater patriot, truth teller, than Dan Bongino. None. He calls it like he sees it. He's got enormous law enforcement experience, a cop, Secret Service, and more. Fantastic deputy director. We have a fantastic director, too. So why is it so hard to believe that when they tell us something, it's true? Because we want to believe it's not true? Now, they revealed in an interview that Epstein killed himself. He committed suicide. Are they supposed to say he didn't commit suicide? If he did commit suicide, would that make people happy? Would that make people happy? Now, in the circles that I work in, live in, play in, socialize in, a circle of about 3, Mr. Producer. But in any event, facts are facts. Not conspiracy theories. Now, these two guys looked at the facts. And they said Epstein killed himself. So what are we going to do now? Attack them? Is that it? Is that how this works? Not on this program. That's not how it works. Not in the real world where I live. Not among conservatives and constitutionalists who deal with facts and information and use their brains. We call it reason. See, we don't use our knees to think. We're not knee-jerkers. We use what's between our ears. So if Kash Patel and Dan Bongino say that Epstein killed himself, then he killed himself. I'm sorry, he killed himself. Now, what are we supposed to do? Hang on to a hope that he was killed? I don't waste time on this stuff. There's plenty of knuckleheads out there, grifters. I don't abuse you, my audience. I don't play with my audience, your emotions and your... I don't do it. Why do I do it? Why would I do it? So that's that. They're not covering up anything. Why would they? What do they have to gain from covering up anything? Nothing. I'm sure if they could find that there was this grand conspiracy, that this one was involved, that one was involved, they'd love to put it out there. But it's not there. And they should be applauded for having integrity and telling the truth. Even though they know there's some boneheads out there. Boneheads. But we'll continue to say otherwise. It's like we have boneheads that say we never walked on the moon. Do you know that, Mr. Producer? They're still out there. It was done in a studio in Hollywood. What was done in a studio? The whole thing was faked. All of it. The Saturn V was faked. Oh, yeah. The hopping around on the moon was faked. They got it all figured out. All figured out. Except if you have two brain cells to rub together and you have the ability to reason, unlike a cucumber, well, then you know we did in fact land on the moon and astronauts have walked on the moon. So if you want to keep chasing the Epstein thing, chase it. There's plenty of talk shows you can call. You know, maybe you can write letters to yourself. Whatever turns you on. Don't bother me with that crap. It's that simple. Just don't bother me. Oh, my God, I used to respect you. I used to love you. I used to hang on your every word. Now the Epstein thing. So leave. I'm sorry I disappointed you. But the vast majority of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not disappointed, and you don't give a crap. That's the way I see it, Mr. Producer. Let's get back to some of these doctors, these TV doctors. We have, for instance, Dr. Vin Gupta on the Morning Schmo show, the Schmo and Mrs. Schmo. You know, you're going to get mad at me. In person, Joe Scarborough's an incredibly nice guy. I've met him once on a plane. He couldn't be more normal. Do you know what I'm saying, Rich? It's interesting, isn't it? It's not the same person on TV. It's just not. And Joe, don't get offended. I'm just being honest about it. Different altogether. Different. But that's neither here nor there. Dr. Vin Gupta on the Morning Schmo show. What does he have to say about Joe Biden's prostate? You know things are bad when they're talking about your prostate, Mr. Producer. What's next? What's next? Cut 13, go.
It is interesting to note that President Trump's, President Obama's, and President Bush II, in their most recent physicals, in their terms of office, obviously 2025 for President Trump, did comment on their PSA levels. And so they got screened while in office, and they commented on it. It's not easy to access the most recent ones from President Biden. You can read summary articles. I couldn't access it on the archive site on the White House just before I came on. But according to those that were able to, there is not a report of a PSA test on the most recent physical that was read out for President Biden.
Okay, so it's a cover-up. Let's just be honest. The Lilliputians out there at Mediaite and other entrails are saying it's a cover-up. Of course it's a cover-up. Just like the fact that Biden was mentally deficient was a cover-up. They're cover-ups. That's what we call them. Just like Dan Abrams, the founder of Mediaite, with those dead squirrels he pasted at the top of his head, he's covering up his bald spot. Don't bother. Everybody knows, Dan. It's okay. It's okay. Even though you'd look very weird at this point. Nonetheless. Then there's Dr. Zeke Emanuel. Remember this guy? Emanuel's brother? I forget his name. What's that guy's first name? Doesn't matter. Rahm Emanuel. Remember this guy? Well, you had to die. You're 78. Remember all that stuff, Mr. Producer? Maybe we should withhold medical care to people of a certain age, have a certain illness. There's such a drag on the economy, you know. So, of course, the Morning Schmo goes to him. So now we have Dr. Vin Gupta. Now we have Dr. Zeke Emanuel. What is he thinking? Cut 12, go.
So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
There is no disagreement. We have a doctor in the family, and she immediately said, he's had it much longer. It's a cover-up. Don't tell Mediaite. Ooh, no. It's a cover-up. And by the way, I wish him all the best. I hope it's treatable. I hope the man lives. Really. I truly do. I think Joe Biden was abused by his wife, by his family. I think he was abused by the vice president and the attorney general. I think he was abused by Clyburn, by Jake Tapper, by all the media, all the Democrats who lied about him. Rather than gently moving him along so he can get the care he needs in the final days of his life. I'm quite serious about this. They should have taken care of the man. Now look at his legacy. I'm no Joe Biden fan. I've never been a Joe Biden fan. That's not what I'm talking about. These people have no humanity. From the family to the friends to their party to the media. It's all about power, power, and more power. They're power hungry. They would have pushed a kumquat to the nomination. No jokes. A kumquat. And then the last weeks, they've been attacking the guy. The media been attacking the people who've covered him up. Of course, they covered him up. It's a real spectacle, isn't it? It's a disgusting spectacle. It's so friggin' corrupt. Corrupt. So, of course, if Dr. Zeke Emanuel says it, it must be true. Then we have Brian Stelter. This guy is as tall as he is wide. He's sort of a human matzo ball, if you will. Meatball. And he's trying to get out in front of this. All these phony journalists and commentators and analysts are trying to get out in front of this, trying to save their careers and their reputations. Among themselves, they will. It doesn't matter. Remember what I told you about negative language and negative power? Morality is irrelevant. In my view, Brian Stelter is utterly immoral. He's an agenda-driven twit. So is his buddy Jake. But here he is on CNN. Now, CNN fired him and they brought him back because everybody knows he's in great demand, the Brian Stelter juggernaut. Cut 14, go.
The timing, Jessica, is just extraordinary. We know from the statement from his personal spokesman that Biden...
Now look, I know my voice is the most beautiful voice in the world, but at least I can say with a high degree of confidence that Mr. Stelter sounds to me like he hasn't completely finished puberty. Am I wrong, Mr. Producer? Hey, I can say with the highest degree of Shut up, you idiot. All right, go ahead.
Well, what was the biggest Biden story on Friday? It was the release of those audio excerpts from his conversations with Robert Hur back in 2023.
So who was demanding the release of those audio excerpts? I was, and a few others were. And who was blocking it? The great Attorney General of the United States, who was also trying to destroy Donald Trump and turn our laws and Constitution inside out. And I'm asking our buddy Jim Jordan, Comer, the others, whoever runs this stuff, you need to drag his ass in front of one of your committees, get this man under oath, and question him about what he knew and when he knew it when it came to Joe Biden. He came up with some phony privilege. I think it was he's an a-hole privilege or whatever the hell it was. Everybody's going, what the hell is he talking about? You just put out a transcript, so we know you're hiding the audio. You don't want us to hear the interaction such as it is. They had no privilege. There was no privilege constitutionally in any respect. They withheld it, and somebody who had guts just leaked it. Go ahead.
Obtained almost certainly from the Trump administration, showing memory lapses. And
so what if it was from the Trump administration, you mental midget? Who cares? So somebody leaked it. It was, what's he, Minnie Mouse? Somebody leaked it. It was from the Trump administration. It certainly wasn't going to come from the Biden administration. They were in full cover-up mode. So is the Attorney General of the United States. Go ahead.
Talking about that audio being hard to hear. Even
hey, shut up, you idiot. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Yellow, yes. Getting some emails here. Yes, there's going to be an audio of On Power. It's going to be a full audio. I'm going to read the entire book, which I never do. The entire book for you. You can get that too, pre-order, and get your discount when they start kicking in those discounts. Again, I just encourage you to do that. So there'll be the audio, there'll be the Kindle. I like hardback books. That's just the way it is. I just like having the book when I'm done, having it on the shelf or passing it to somebody or passing it down the line. Whatever it is. That's what I like to do, but that's me. Hello, that's just me. That's what I like to do. Chris Murphy is a freakish-looking ghost-like figure. I understand he left his wife for another woman. Mark, why do you say that? Well, why shouldn't I say that? Am I not allowed to say that now? Tell me, what can I say and what can't I say? Should I call him Hitler? Is that better? No, I won't do that. So he's at Meet the Depressed. Now, why is Chris Murphy on Meet the Depressed? He comes from Connecticut, beautiful, perfectly nice state. The Nutmeg State, they call themselves. They might want to change that. But nonetheless, it's the Nutmeg State. But why does Chris Murphy matter? He doesn't. He doesn't. He's a sleazeball. And so he's on there with Kristen Welker, who's a disaster. I Meet the Depressed. A show that used to have really great anchors until Chuck Todd and now her. Bottom of the barrel. So here he is on Meet the Depressed. They bring him on because they want him to say the things they know he's going to say. He's a wind-up doll. Cut 11, go.
But I admit that by 2024, the American public had made up their mind, right, that they wanted the Democratic Party to nominate somebody new, and it was absolutely a mistake for the party to not listen to those voters.
Aren't you swell, jackass? At the time, what do you mean the party not to listen? You didn't listen, you jerk. It's funny, I'm here behind a microphone calling for an open Democrat primary. I'm not even a Democrat. Everybody knew it was a ram-down job. Everybody knew it. She got nominated like they nominate people in these totalitarian regimes. They handed it to her. They didn't want competition. They didn't want anything at the DNC that made upset the apple cart, you know. They felt that they could get behind her, a woman, a minority, get her elected, beat Donald Trump, and there they'd be set. And she's an idiot. And now we know she drank. I'm sorry. She drank. This guy left his wife for another woman. Hey. Go ahead.
You bear some responsibility as well.
Oh, I think we
By the
all
way,
bear.
reportedly, allegedly, Mr. Producer, reportedly, allegedly. She says, do you bear some responsibility as well? He said, I think we all bear responsibility. She asked if you did, meathead. You. Go ahead.
And I think, you know, we maybe didn't listen as early as we should have, in part because we have immense loyalty to this man who had led this country out of a pandemic, who had been maybe the most prodigious legislator as a president, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Act, the bipartisan gun bill, in a generation. But ultimately, in retrospect, you can't defend what the Democratic Party did.
You just did, you jackass. You just tried. You just tried. Is this guy running for president, too? Is he? If so, which country? Which country? I'll be right back.
The only show with a warning label, The Liberals. The Mark Levin Show. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
I hope this isn't true. I keep reading these news reports. Everyone says it's not true, and then it is true. And I talked about it on air, about the distancing between our country and Israel while cozying up with these other regimes. And according to World Israel News, Vice President Vance canceled his Israel trip to distance the United States from the IDF Gaza operation. I certainly hope that's not true. Israel needs to destroy Hamas, whether Washington likes it or not. Israel must destroy Hamas, whether Washington likes it or not. And then there was another story here I'm trying to find. Israel Pundit. Again, I don't know if these stories are true. I'm just responding. It says U.S. envoy Witkoff pressures Israel and Hamas to accept new hostage ceasefire proposal that could lead to end of war. And U.S. Special Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff delivered a new hostage ceasefire report proposal to Israel, and Hamas is actively pressuring both sides to accept it. Axios reported, well, that doesn't sound like we're supporting Israel in its effort to destroy Hamas. So Hamas is supposed to survive? Weren't we proud that the president destroyed ISIS, Mr. Producer? Did we have a ceasefire with ISIS? I'm just trying to remember. Did we have a ceasefire with Al-Qaeda? So my advice to the Israelis and to the Prime Minister and the government there and the people of Israel, which nobody's asked for, is fight on. Destroy Hamas, no matter what anybody says. Those are your people who've been murdered. It doesn't matter. And if people are going to threaten you with an arms cut off, so be it. If people are going to push you around and bully you and threaten you, too bad. Again, this can be completely fake news. Got it? As the Democrats like to say, if it's true. But I don't know if it's true or not. So again, my comments relate to what's reported. And may I suggest that Qatar provide some food, if that's the issue, to the Hamasians, since Qatar started it? Why doesn't Qatar provide them? I saw a lot of food on those tables, didn't you, Mr. Producer? Lots of food. Holy mackerel. Holy moly. There's a lot of food there. Yes, that's what I saw. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Charlie Kirk. My wife shared a video of Charlie's from about, what would it be, 3-4 weeks ago? Fantastic. Fantastic on what he had to say. Didn't I post that, Mr. Producer? I'm going to post. Do I have it there with you? Let's go ahead and post that. A video. I couldn't have said what he said better myself. About the Holy Land. He said, I went there. I saw these places that are in the Bible. It's not a fantasy. It's not a fiction. It's not a mystery. It's reality. Don't tell me the Jews weren't there. Don't tell me the Christians weren't there. And he really let this guy have it. And the guy said, what does this have to do with anything? It has to do with everything. It was absolutely outstanding, I felt. Chuck Schumer is, as I've said for decades, a schmuck. He's also a lowlife. And I say that with all due respect, of course. And if he gains another 20 pounds, he will be an honorary member of FU, Fatties United. But I had a meeting of Fatties United this morning with myself. As you know, I'm the chairman and the sergeant at arms. And the three of us, me, myself, and I, we decided that we were going to have a sub-organization within our organization. You know how they do that? Yeah, they all do that. So we're going to have, in addition to Fatties United or FU, we're going to have Frauds United, or FU. Now, obviously, I'm not a member of Frauds United, so we're going to have that as sort of an independent entity within Fatties United. You know how the government does that. Well, it's an independent agency with that. Shut up. All right, anyway. So we're going to have Frauds United, and Chuck Schumer will be the honorary chairman, whether he likes it or not. So we still say to Chuck Schumer, oops, it almost came out of my mouth. So we still say to Chuck Schumer, F you. And we mean it, Chuck. We mean it in the most respectful way possible. And he's at a press conference yesterday, so we have this Mexican ship that hits the Brooklyn Bridge. How the hell do you do that when your mast is 160 some feet and the bridge is 137 feet? Who does this stuff? It's the second one. There in Baltimore, a ship hits the bridge. What the hell is that? Another one hits? What's going on? I don't know. But things come in threes. I know that. So I would say, watch out, Philadelphia, the Tacony-Palmyra Bridge. That bridge, which I used to drive over all the time from Pennsylvania, Philly, into Camden. But Camden, that's a fascinating city. Wow. I understand housing prices are pretty good there. Nonetheless, used to go through there. I think it was the Black Horse Pike eventually to go to Atlantic City. We had a wonderful time. Yes, we did. Best diners, the best sort of Dairy Queen, the custard. I loved it. Now we go from when we're in Virginia, we drive and we go over the Delaware Memorial Bridges, and then we turn right on, I guess it's 40 East. And you drive that pretty much all the way through, but not all the way through, to get to the New Jersey. As my wife says, it's not the beach, it's the shore. Okay, the shore, whatever. But we enjoy doing that. We're trying to do that once a year now. We literally stayed in Atlantic City, which unfortunately, no, we love Atlantic City. And there's Ventnor, there's Margate. But this last time we stayed in Ocean City, New Jersey, just beautiful, the whole shoreline. I got to say this, don't get upset with me, America, East Coast, West Coast, well, it doesn't matter. I find the Jersey beaches to be the best. Now look, we have a home in Florida. And all I know is I'm always running away from sharks. The Jersey beach, I've never seen a shark. I mean, I see liberals, if you mean them. I'm talking about sharks, I have found the Jersey beaches to be the best. I have found the beach at Atlantic City and Ventnor and Margate. I have found the beach at Ocean City. I just love them. I love them. Anyway, why am I talking about this? Doesn't matter. Chuck Schumer. Listen to the boats hitting the bridges. Crazy. Now listen to this idiot. Cut 18, go.
We know that the Trump administration has been meddling in U.S. Coast Guard operations, from staffing to command and comms. And I have the general sense of a Doge dysfunction in parts of the Coast Guard.
What does that mean? Is he palm reading or something? By the way, they do that in Atlantic City, too, on the boardwalk. What does that mean? I've got the general sense. Has he got something running up or down his leg like Chris Mann? What is it? Are his hemorrhoids acting up? He gets the general sense that something's going on. Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
After being fully briefed on last night's Brooklyn Bridge accident, one thing is very clear. There are many more questions than answers.
Shut up, he looks like a cadaver to me, this guy. Doesn't he to you, Mr. Producer? Not MacGyver, cadaver. So he tries to politicize it, and it's Trump's fault, and it's Elon Musk's fault. It's the fault of the Republicans. This is what I mean about the chapter on language. This is what I mean about negative language for negative power. This is what I mean about the totalitarian mindset. This guy has no moral core. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter if it's true, if it's an outright lie. It doesn't matter who he hurts by what he says. It doesn't matter. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let me repeat. Israel must obliterate Hamas, period. Doesn't matter what the world says. Doesn't matter what another country says. It doesn't matter. Iran must get no nukes. And if Israel has to take out those nuke sites, depending on what deal is going to be negotiated, because it's obvious that there's going to be some kind of deal, I think, then Israel needs to do what Israel needs to do, just as America would. Israel's a sovereign nation. They're in the wrong neighborhood. Well, they're in the right neighborhood. It's the Holy Land, but the wrong dictators and genocidal maniacs surround them. They have to do what's right for their country and their people. And survival seems to me to be a priority. And their elected representatives get to decide. Isn't it interesting? We talk about globalism, about America first. Well, Israel doesn't have to bow to globalism or anything else. And it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. You know, the Arabs and the rest ought to be afraid of Israel. They're the ones that have nuclear weapons. They haven't used them. Nobody even thinks they will use them. Isn't that amazing? But everybody knows that they would be used to at least threaten, if not worse, by the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, wouldn't they? That's the difference, isn't it? So I just say to our friends in Israel, don't let anyone bully you, any other country, any international organization. I would say to our enemies in the American press and their entrails like Mediaite and the rest of them, you people are pathetic. You play games about who's in, who's out, who's attacking whom, and so forth, and so you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even know who I talk to or what we say to each other. It's just games. Games. You're useless. You're pathetic. What's the guy? Colby? He's the guy that runs it. Is that his name? What is his name? Colby Hall. That's right. You ever see this guy? Let's take a call or three. Gail, Malvern, Pennsylvania, on the Mark Levin app. I know exactly where that is. How are you, Gail?
Hi, Mark. I'm well. I hope you're well. I called because you were talking you were talking about power, and I often wondered why the legacy media actually promoted Democrats and regulations. And I realized that these billionaire Marxist, to use your term, CEOs, really want to take out their competition. They want more regulations because they know that the small businesses and the startups, they can't afford these carbon taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So they're in cahoots with these Democrat politicians. They're all power mad, as you say, totally addicted, like substance abuse. And they want to put out all their competition.
Mm-hmm. Well said. By the way, how is Malvern doing these days?
Excellent, but too Democrat. I'm in the borough, and I was in Tredyffrin, which is also too Democrat, unfortunately.
It's so crazy. When I lived there, it was all Republican, and it's terrible. It's terrible, the suburbs of Philadelphia, what's happened there for the most part. It's just terrible. Where I used to live, I got elected to the school board there. I couldn't get elected anything there today just because I'm not a Democrat. It's crazy.
I know. Well,
enjoy.
Regarding
all right.
Israel?
What's that?
Can I say one thing regarding Israel?
Yeah, you got 1 minute until we have to go.
I hope they do take out the nukes in Iran, and it might be President Trump's play to show the world he's exhausting every opportunity before that happens.
Yeah, it might be, and I hope you're right. But if it's not, I'm talking about Israel has to do what Israel has to do. Hope you're right, and you may well be right. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine and the men and women in Israel. We have your backs. And I'll see you tomorrow, the great American people. God bless.